The great hall on Vex Prime shimmered like a crystal cave. Light bounced off the walls in colors that had no names. Beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved by thought alone. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others breathed methane through gills on their necks. A few looked like walking trees with eyes that glowed blue in the dim light. This was the Galactic Council. They met once every 1,000 years to talk about important things. Wars between planets, trade rules for star systems, which species could join their group and which ones had to stay away. Today felt different. The air buzzed with excitement. Representatives whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or wind or breaking glass. They had come here to vote on something big. Something that would change everything. At the center of the hall sat the oldest being anyone had ever seen. His name was Morren. His people called themselves the First Ones because they had been traveling the stars, when most other species were still learning to make fire. Morren was so old that his own people had forgotten what their home planet looked like. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched whole species disappear into history. His body was thin and bent. His skin looked like old leather that had been left in the sun too long. 6 arms hung from his shoulders like dead branches. But his eyes still burned bright with ancient knowledge. When he looked at someone, they felt like he could see right through their soul. The hall grew quiet as Morren stood up. His legs shook with the effort. One of his arms reached for a walking stick made from some kind of metal that seemed to absorb light. The stick hummed softly as it touched the crystal floor. "My friends," Morren said. His voice was like wind through caves, old and deep and tired. "I have called you here to speak of danger. A danger that sleeps in the dark between the stars. A danger that we must never wake." Some of the younger representatives shifted in their chairs. They had heard the old one's warnings before, always about some threat that never came, always about some species that was too dangerous to contact. They thought he was just scared of everything because he was old. Captain Vexar of the Dominion fleet leaned forward. He was young for his species, only 300 years old. His blue skin sparkled with tiny scales that caught the light. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face showed his boredom clearly. "Elder Morren," Vexar said. His voice was smooth like oil on water. "We respect your wisdom. But the galaxy has changed since your time. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. We have ships that can cross from one end of the galaxy to the other in days. What could possibly threaten us now?" Morren's eyes fixed on the young captain. For a moment, Vexar felt very small and very foolish. "You think your weapons make you strong?" Morren said. "You think your ships make you safe? But I have lived long enough to see the truth. The most dangerous things in the universe are not the ones with the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws. The most dangerous things are the ones that change everything just by being themselves." He turned to address the whole hall. His voice grew stronger as he spoke. "Far from here, on the edge of what we call civilized space, there is a small yellow star. Around that star circles a world of water and stone. On that world lives a species that calls itself human." Several representatives laughed. The sound echoed off the crystal walls like breaking bells. "Humans?" said Ambassador Quintal from the Trade Federation. Her voice bubbled like water through pipes. "We have studied them from far away. They are nothing special. They have only one heart, only 2 eyes. They cannot even breathe underwater, or fly through the air on their own. They are so weak that their own planet keeps trying to kill them." More laughter filled the hall, but Morren did not smile. "Yes," he said quietly. "Their planet keeps trying to kill them. Ice ages that should have frozen them to death. Volcanoes that should have burned them to ash. Meteors that should have wiped them from existence. And yet they are still there, still growing stronger, still learning new ways to survive." He began to walk around the center of the hall. His stick tapped against the floor with each step. "Do you know what happens when a human faces something impossible? Something that should kill them or stop them or make them give up? They look at it and say, how interesting, and then they find a way to make it work for them instead of against them. General Cormax from the War Clan stood up. He was twice as tall as any human and covered in armor that could stop laser fire. His species had conquered 40 worlds through pure strength. You speak of them like they are gods, Cormax rumbled. His voice sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. But they have never even left their own star system. They fight each other over patches of dirt. They poison their own air and water. How can such fools be dangerous to us? Morren stopped walking. He stared at the general with eyes that had seen too much. They fight each other, yes. But do you know why? Not for territory or resources like most species. They fight over ideas, over thoughts, over beliefs about how things should be. And when they fight, they learn. They get better, they get stronger, they get more creative. He pointed one shaking finger at a holographic display that appeared in the air above them. It showed images of Earth, cities full of lights, humans walking on the surface of their moon, machines flying through their skies. Look at them closely, Morren said. Really look. They took the lightning from their sky and taught it to carry their voices across the world. They took the fire from deep in their earth and made it push them toward the stars. They looked at the birds in their air and said, we will do that too, and built wings from metal and dreams. The images changed. Now they showed humans in strange situations. Humans diving deep into their oceans where the pressure should have crushed them. Humans climbing mountains where the cold should have frozen them. Humans running across deserts where the heat should have killed them. Every time their world says, you cannot do this thing, they find a way to do it anyway. Every time nature tries to stop them, they turn that force into a tool. They are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest species. But they are the most stubborn species that has ever existed. Scientist Melandra from the Research Collective floated closer in her chair. Her large head pulsed with thoughts that moved too fast for most beings to follow. But Elder, she said in a voice like singing crystals, their technology is primitive. Their weapons are crude. Their space travel is barely beyond chemical rockets. They pose no threat to any of us. Morren's laugh was like wind through dry leaves. Sad and tired and bitter. You think their technology matters? You think their weapons matter? Let me tell you what really matters about humans. They have something that no other species in this galaxy has ever possessed. Something so dangerous that I pray to the stars we never have to face it. The hall fell completely silent. Even the whispered translation stopped. Everyone leaned forward to hear what the ancient being would say next. They have hope, Morren said simply. Not the kind of hope that wishes for good things to happen. The kind of hope that looks at the impossible and says, not yet. The kind of hope that refuses to believe that anything is truly beyond their reach. He gestured to the images still floating above them. You see primitive technology. I see a species that went from throwing rocks to walking on their moon in less than their one lifetime. You see crude weapons. I see a species that learned to split the very atoms of reality and chose not to destroy themselves with that power. You see barely functional space travel. I see a species that is taking its first steps toward the stars. The images changed again. This time they showed human art, music, stories, pictures painted on cave walls, and sculptures carved from stone. But none of that is what makes them truly dangerous, Morren continued. What makes them dangerous is this. They believe that every problem has a solution. They believe that every enemy can become a friend. They believe that no matter how dark things get, tomorrow can be better than today. Captain Vexar stood up again. His 4 eyes showed his irritation clearly. Elder, with respect you speak in riddles. Hope cannot stop laser cannons. Dreams cannot destroy battleships. If we wanted to, we could turn their entire world into dust in a matter of hours. Morren turned to face the young captain directly. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. Yes, you could destroy their world. But could you destroy their hope? Could you kill their dreams? Could you stop them from believing that even you, their enemy, might someday become their friend? He raised his voice so that everyone in the hall could hear. I have lived for 10,000 of their years. I have seen species rise and fall like waves on a shore. I have watched empires that seemed eternal crumble into dust. And in all that time, I have learned one truth that frightens me more than anything else. The hall waited. The only sound was the soft humming of the crystal walls. The most dangerous beings in the universe are not the ones who destroy their enemies. The most dangerous beings are the ones who turn their enemies into friends. And humans, my friends, are very good at making friends. Laughter erupted from many of the representatives. The sound bounced off the walls like thunder. Friends? Ambassador Quinel bubbled with amusement. Elder, they cannot even make friends with each other. Their history is nothing but war and conflict. Yes, Morren agreed. They fight, they argue, they disagree about everything. But watch what happens when they face a common threat. Watch. What happens when something from outside tries to hurt one of them? New images appeared. Humans working together during disasters. Humans from different nations helping each other after earthquakes and floods. Humans sharing food with strangers. Humans risking their own lives to save people they had never met. They have a word in their language, Morren said. Family. But for humans, family is not just about blood or genetics. Family is anyone who needs help. Family is anyone who is lost or hurt or afraid. Family is everyone they have ever met and everyone they ever will meet. He pointed to the images floating. Above them. You see a species that fights itself. I see a species that is practicing. Every conflict teaches them something new about war. Every peace teaches them something new about forgiveness. Every generation becomes better at both. General Cormax snorted with disgust. You make them sound like saints. But we have monitored their communications. They lie to each other. They cheat. They steal. They are no different from any other species. No, Morren said quietly, they are very different. Because when a human does something wrong, other humans notice. Other humans care. Other humans try to stop them or help them do better. They judge themselves by their highest examples, not their lowest ones. The ancient being began to walk around the hall again. His stick tapped steadily against the crystal floor. You want to know why I'm afraid of humans? I will tell you a story. 500 years ago, my people discovered a world where two species were at war. They had been fighting for so long that they had forgotten why the war started. They only knew how to hate each other. The images above changed to show a world torn by conflict, cities in ruins. Families fleeing from explosions, children crying in the darkness. My people tried to make peace between them. We offered trade agreements. We offered technology, we offered threats. Nothing worked. They preferred to destroy each other rather than live together. Morren stopped walking and faced the assembled representatives. Then a human ship arrived. Just one ship. Not a warship. Not a trade vessel. A small research ship with 12 humans on board. They had come to study the pretty flowers that grew on that world. Some of the representatives chuckled at the absurdity of it. The humans landed in the middle of the war zone. Both sides shot at them immediately. The humans responded by cooking dinner. They set up a camp right there on the battlefield and started making food. Good food. Food that smelled so wonderful that soldiers from both armies came to see what was happening. The images showed humans sitting around a fire, sharing meals with alien soldiers. The humans invited everyone to eat with them. They did not ask which side anyone was on. They did not care about the war. They just saw hungry people and decided to feed them. While they ate, the humans asked questions. Simple questions. What are your names? Do you have families? What did you do before the war started? Morren's voice grew softer as he continued. By the end of the week, soldiers from both armies were working together to protect the human camp, not because the humans asked them to, because the humans treated them like people instead of enemies. Within a month, the war was over. Not through conquest or surrender. Through a peace treaty negotiated around a human cooking fire, the hall was completely silent now. Even the crystal walls seemed to have stopped humming. "That is why I fear humans," Morren said. "Not because they are strong, not because they are smart, but because they are kind. And kindness, my friends, is the most dangerous force in the universe. It changes everything it touches. It makes allies out of enemies. It makes friends out of strangers. It makes family out of the whole galaxy." He turned to look directly at each representative in turn. "You think you can conquer them? You think you can control them? You think you can make them serve your purposes? But you are wrong. They." Captain Vexar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist. Through the viewing ports, he could see the blue and white marble that the humans called Earth. It looked peaceful from space. Swirls of white clouds moved across blue oceans. Green and brown continents dotted the surface like patches on an old blanket. The captain's 4 eyes studied the tactical displays floating around his command chair. His fleet consisted of 12 ships. Each one could destroy a city with a single blast from their main weapons. The humans had nothing that could even reach them at this distance. "Status report," Vexar commanded. His voice echoed through the bridge where 30 crew members worked at stations that hummed with alien technology. Lieutenant Carms, his communications officer, turned from her console. Her tentacles moved rapidly across the controls as she spoke. "Sir, we have been monitoring their communications for the past day. The humans seem to have noticed our arrival. Their governments are holding emergency meetings. Their military forces are moving to high alert status." Vexar smiled. The expression looked strange on his blue, scaled face. "Good. Fear will make them more reasonable. What about their defensive capabilities?" Commander Raxul, his tactical officer, pulled up new displays. Numbers and charts filled the air between them. "Primitive, sir. They have missiles that use chemical fuel. Some orbital platforms with basic energy weapons. A few space stations that could not survive even one hit from our smallest guns. Their most advanced ships are barely capable of reaching their own moon." "Excellent." Vexar settled back in his chair. This would be even easier than he had thought. "Open a communication channel to their planet, all frequencies. I want every human to hear this message." The communications array on the Iron Fist was more advanced than anything humans had ever built. It could punch through any signal jamming and broadcast on every frequency at once. Within seconds, every radio, television, and computer on Earth was receiving the same transmission. Vexar's image appeared on screens around the world. In the United Nations building in New York, in the Kremlin in Moscow, in the homes of families eating dinner, in the phones of children playing in parks. "People of Earth," Vexar began. His voice was translated into every human language simultaneously. "I am Captain Vexar of the Dominion Fleet. We represent the Galactic Council, the governing body of all civilized species in this galaxy. On Earth, billions of humans stopped what they were doing to listen. In government buildings, world leaders leaned forward in their chairs. In homes, families gathered around their screens. In schools, teachers turned up the volume so their students could hear history being made. Your species has reached a level of development that requires integration into galactic society," Vexar continued. "This is not a request. This is an inevitable step in your evolution. You have 2 choices." He paused for effect. This was the moment when most species began to panic, when they realized how small and helpless they really were. "You may join the Dominion willingly as a client species. You will provide resources and labor as required. In return, you will receive protection and access to limited galactic technology. Your world will be preserved and your people will be allowed to continue existing under our guidance." On the bridge of the Iron Fist, the crew watched their scanners for signs of human panic, mass evacuations, military mobilization, desperate attempts to contact other worlds for help. Instead, something strange began to happen. "Sir," Lieutenant Carms said, her tentacles twitching with confusion, "I am receiving thousands of communication requests from the planet. They all seem to be Invitations. Invitations to what? Vexar asked. To dinner, sir. And parties. And something called potluck suppers. Also, many humans are asking if we need directions to the nearest coffee shop. Vexar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. That made no sense at all. Continue the message, he ordered. Your second choice, Vexar sighed, his voice growing colder, is conquest. If you refuse our generous offer, we will take what we need by force. Your resistance will be crushed. Your cities will be destroyed. Your people will serve us whether they wish to or not. He expected screaming. He expected chaos. He expected the humans to realize the hopelessness of their situation and immediately surrender. Instead, the communication requests from Earth doubled. Now they were getting invitations to birthday parties, book clubs, and something called a barbecue. Someone named Martha from Nebraska wanted to know if the aliens were allergic to anything because she was making her famous potato salad. Sir? Commander Raxul reported from his station. I am detecting unusual activity on the planet's surface. Multiple launches from various locations. Military response? Vexar asked. Finally, the humans were showing some sense. Unknown, sir. The objects appear to be packages. Packages? Small containers being launched toward our fleet using what appears to be modified civilian spacecraft. No weapon signatures, no explosive materials. They seem to contain food items and reading materials. Vexar stared at his tactical officer. Food? Yes, sir. And books and music recordings. And photographs, and something called welcome mats. The captain's scales rippled with confusion. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Every species in the galaxy followed the same pattern when faced with superior force. They either surrendered immediately or fought desperately. They did not send care packages. You have one of your days to make your decision, Vexar announced, finishing his broadcast. Choose wisely. The Dominion's patience is not unlimited. The transmission ended. Vexar sat back in his chair and waited for the human response. It would probably be a desperate plea for more time. Or maybe a pathetic attempt to negotiate better terms. Instead, his communications officer looked up from her console with an expression of complete bewilderment. Sir, we are receiving a response from Earth. It appears to be from their United Nations. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed a room full of humans sitting around a large table. They all looked remarkably calm for people who had just been threatened with extinction. One of them, an elderly woman with gray hair, stood up and smiled. Hello there, she said in a warm, grandmotherly voice. I'm Secretary General Chun. We're absolutely delighted to meet you. We've been wondering when we'd have visitors from space. Vexar's 4 eyes narrowed. Was this human mocking him? We received your message, Secretary General Chun continued. And we've been discussing it. We're always happy to make new friends, but we're a little confused about some of the things you said. Confused? Vexar's voice carried a dangerous edge. Well, yes. You mentioned something about client species and forced labor. We were wondering if maybe there was a translation error? Because that doesn't sound like friendship at all. That sounds more like slavery. Around the table, other human representatives nodded in agreement. They still looked remarkably calm. There was no translation error, Vexar said coldly. Those are your options. Willing servitude or conquest? Secretary General Chun tilted her head to one side like she was trying to understand a difficult concept. Oh dear, that is a problem, isn't it? You see, we've been down that road before. Slavery, conquest, forced labor. It never works out well for anyone involved. The enslaved people suffer, certainly, but the enslavers suffer too. It damages their souls and makes them less than they could be. She leaned forward slightly, her expression kind but firm. So, I'm afraid we'll have to go with option 3. There's no option 3, Vexar growled. Oh, but there is, Chun said with a smile. Option 3 is friendship, real friendship. The kind where we help each other grow and learn and become better than we were before, the kind where everyone benefits. Around the bridge of the Iron Fist, the crew exchanged glances. This was not going according to any protocol they had ever learned. "We don't want to be your clients or your conquerors," Chun continued. "We want to be your friends. We want to learn about your cultures and your histories. We want to share our stories and our music and our food. We want to build something beautiful together." Vexar stood up from his command chair, his voice filled with authority and threat. "Human, you do not understand your situation. We have weapons that can turn your world to ash. We have ships that can cross the galaxy in days. We have conquered 47 worlds. You have nothing that can oppose us." Secretary General Chun nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right. We can't fight you with weapons or ships, but we don't want to fight you at all. Fighting is what you do to enemies, and we don't want you to be our enemies." She gestured to the other humans around the table. "We've been talking about this since your message arrived. Dr. Reeves here is a linguist. She's already started working on learning your language properly so we can communicate better. Professor Martinez is an anthropologist. He's fascinated by your social structures and wants to understand how your society developed. Chef Williams is planning a dinner party that includes foods from every culture on Earth, and she's hoping you'll share some of your favorite recipes too." Vexar felt something strange happening in his chest. A feeling he couldn't identify. It was almost like fear, but different, softer. "You are threatening us," he said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "No," Chun said gently. "We're inviting you." "There's a difference." On his tactical display, Commander Raxul was tracking dozens of small craft launching from Earth. None of them carried weapons. Instead, they carried exactly what the humans had said: food, books, music, photographs of human families, and handwritten notes in dozens of languages welcoming the visitors to Earth. "Sir," Lieutenant Carnes reported, "we are receiving individual messages from millions of humans. They appear to be personal greetings and invitations to visit their cities, their homes, their schools." Vexar looked at the tactical display, showing the pathetically weak human defenses. Then he looked at the communication logs showing thousands of dinner invitations. Something was very wrong here. This was not how primitive species were supposed to behave. "We will demonstrate our power," he announced. "Target their lunar installations, minimal destruction. Just enough to show them what we can do." "Sir," Commander Raxul said hesitantly, "their lunar installations appear to be scientific research stations and some kind of recreational facilities. I don't care what they are. Fire a warning shot." The Iron Fist's main gun charged with a whine that could be felt through the ship's hull. A beam of energy lanced out toward Earth's moon, striking one of the smaller human outposts. The explosion could be seen from Earth as a brief flash of light. Vexar expected panic. He expected desperate pleas for mercy. He expected immediate surrender. Instead, his communications officer looked up with an expression of complete shock. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the lunar facility we just destroyed." "That's impossible. We destroyed it." "Yes, sir." But the humans had already evacuated it. They moved everyone to safety as soon as they detected our weapon charging. And now they're asking if we're all right. If we're all right? "Yes, sir." They want to know if there was some kind of accident. They're offering to send rescue ships to help us if something went wrong with our weapon systems. Vexar sat down heavily in his command chair. His scales had lost their luster and were now a dull blue-gray color. On the main screen, Secretary General Chun was still waiting patiently. Behind her, other humans were busy with various activities. Some were on phones, apparently coordinating something. Others were working on computers. A few were actually knitting. "Captain Vexar," Chun said softly, "we saw what happened to our moon base. We know it was intentional. We know you were trying to scare us." Vexar said nothing. "It's all right," Chun continued. "We understand. You're probably under a lot of pressure from your superiors. First contact situations are stressful for everyone involved." "We're not angry." "You should be angry," Vexar said quietly. "Why? Because you destroyed an empty building? We evacuated it hours ago? Dr. Kim, who ran that facility, is right here with us." She's actually excited because now she has an excuse to redesign the whole thing with better equipment. A woman at the table waved cheerfully at the screen. "The new lab is going to be amazing," Dr. Kim called out. "We've been wanting to upgrade for years. Thank you for giving us the push we needed." Vexar felt something crack inside his chest. These humans were thanking him for attacking them. They were treating an act of war like a favor? "I don't understand," he said. "What don't you understand?" Chun asked gently. "Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you begging for mercy?" Chun smiled sadly. "Oh, Captain, we are afraid." "Of course we're afraid. We're terrified. But being afraid doesn't mean we have to be enemies. Being afraid doesn't mean we can't still be kind." She leaned forward again. "And we're not begging for mercy because we're hoping we won't need to. We're hoping that you'll choose to be our friend instead of our conqueror. We're hoping that somewhere underneath all that armor and all those weapons, you're just as scared as we are and just as tired of fighting." On the bridge of the Iron Fist, several crew members had stopped working. They were listening to the conversation with expressions of growing confusion and something that might have been hope. "Sir," Commander Raxul said quietly, "I'm receiving reports from the rest of the fleet. The packages the humans sent, they're not just food and books?" "What are they? Personal stories, sir?" "Photographs of human families. Children's drawings, letters written by hand, music recordings, and dies. Toys? Small recreational objects for young humans. Apparently they thought we might have children aboard our ships who would be bored during the long journey from their homeworlds." Vexar closed all four of his eyes. The humans had sent toys for alien children they had never met. They had drawn pictures and written letters to beings who had come to conquer them. "There's more, sir," Raxul continued. "Each package includes detailed instructions on how to prepare the food items safely for various biological types. They researched our known physiology and made sure nothing they sent could harm us accidentally." "They researched us?" "Yes, sir. Apparently their internet contains copies of most of the galactic database. They've been studying every species in the Council for years. They know our foods, our customs, our histories. They've been preparing for this moment not by building weapons, but by learning how to be good hosts." Vexar opened his eyes and looked at the human delegation on his screen. They were still waiting patiently, still hoping, still believing that somehow this would work out all right. "Why?" he asked Secretary General Chun. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," Chun said simply, "that's what you do when someone comes. To visit, you welcome them, you feed them, you try to make them feel at home, even if they're not very polite at first." She winked at him, "Especially if they're not very polite at first. Usually that just means they've had a hard journey and need some kindness." Vexar stood up from his chair and walked to the viewing port. Earth hung in space below him, blue and beautiful and utterly defenseless. He could destroy it with a single command. Instead, he found himself wondering what human coffee tasted like. "We'll continue this conversation tomorrow," he announced. "I need to consult with my crew." "Of course," Chun said. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here. And Captain, there's a package with your name on it in the batch we sent up. It's from a little girl named Lucy in Ohio. She drew you a picture of her cat." The transmission ended. Vexar stood alone at the viewing port, staring down at the world that was supposed to surrender or be destroyed. Instead, it was offering him friendship and showing him pictures of cats. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. But he could feel their eyes on him, could sense their growing uncertainty. They had come here to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they had found something they had no training for and no defense against. They had found humans being human. And for the first time in his 300 years of life, Captain Vexar of the Dominion fleet was not sure what he was supposed to do next. Admiral Coffer stared at the report from Captain Vexar with all 6 of his eyes. Each eye moved independently as he read the impossible words again and again. Behind him, the massive command ship Eternal Dominion hummed with the power of 1,000 suns. Around it, 200 warships waited in formation like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness of space. Captain Vexar refused to fire on the human homeworld, Admiral Coffer said slowly. His voice was like metal grinding against stone, because they sent him pictures of cats. General Vexmore, commander of the Dominion ground forces, shifted uncomfortably in his powered armor. The suit was designed to survive direct hits from plasma cannons, but right now it felt too small. Sir, the captain's report mentions other factors. The humans evacuated their facilities before he could demonstrate our power. They sent food and gifts to our ships. They offered medical assistance when they thought our weapons had malfunctioned. Admiral Coffer's scales darkened to a deep purple. This was not the color of anger. This was the color of something much more dangerous: confusion. General, I have conquered 17 star systems. I have accepted the surrender of 43 different species. In every case, they followed the same pattern. They saw our power, recognized their weakness, and submitted to superior force. What exactly are these humans doing? General Vexmore consulted his tactical display. Numbers and charts floated in the air between them, but somehow they seemed less important than they had a week ago. According to our intelligence reports, sir, they appear to be learning. Learning what? Everything, sir. Our languages, our cultures, our histories. They have decoded our technical manuals and are studying our ship designs. Not to copy our weapons, but to understand how we might be homesick for different types of environments. They are preparing quarters on their space stations that match the atmospheric requirements of every species in our fleet. Admiral Coffer was quiet for a long moment. Through the viewing ports of his command ship, he could see Earth in the distance. It looked so small and blue and peaceful. Nothing like the fortress worlds he usually had to crack open with overwhelming firepower. Sir, Science Officer Villani interrupted from her station. Her voice was like bells chiming in a gentle wind. I have completed my analysis of the human transmissions. You should see this. A holographic display appeared in the center of the command deck. It showed thousands of human faces all talking at once. Men and women and children of every color and age, speaking in hundreds of different languages. What am I looking at? The Admiral asked. Personal messages, sir? Every human on their planet has sent individual greetings to our fleet. They are introducing themselves, showing us their families, telling us about their hobbies and their jobs and their dreams. Admiral Coffer watched as the display zoomed in on specific messages. A human child holding up a drawing of stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. An elderly human man playing music on some kind of stringed instrument. A human female showing pictures of small furry animals she called pets. They know we came here to conquer them, Villani continued. But they are acting like we came to visit. Like we are guests who traveled very far to see them and they want to make sure we feel welcome. Guests, the Admiral repeated slowly. They think we are guests? More than that, sir? They think we are friends, they just haven't met yet. General Vexmore pulled up his own reports from the ground forces. Admiral, it gets stranger. Our reconnaissance teams detected massive construction projects on their planet's surface. We assumed they were building defensive fortifications. Instead, they appear to be building hotels. Hotels? Accommodation facilities, sir. Places for visitors to stay comfortably. They are designing them to accommodate every possible biological type. They have rooms filled with methane for the Zephyrians. Underwater chambers for the Aquatic Alliance. High-pressure environments for the rock people. They are building guest quarters for species they have never met. Admiral Coffer felt something strange happening in his chest, the same feeling Captain Vexar had described in his report, like the universe was shifting in ways that made no tactical sense. Show me Captain Vexar's current position. The tactical display changed to show the Iron Fist and its escort vessels. They were still in orbit around Earth, but something was different about their formation. Sir, Villani said carefully, they appear to have moved into a defensive pattern. Defensive? Against what? Against us, sir. Captain Vexar has positioned his ships to protect Earth from our fleet. Admiral Coffer's scales turned completely black. This was unacceptable. A Dominion captain protecting the world he was supposed to conquer. It was treason of the highest order. Open a communication channel to the Iron Fist immediately. Captain. Vexar's image appeared on the main screen. He looked different than he had a week ago. His scales were brighter. His 4 eyes seemed more alert. Behind him, his bridge crew worked with what appeared to be increased efficiency and enthusiasm. Admiral Coffer, Vexar said. I was expecting your call. Captain, explain your current position. Why are your ships defending the human homeworld instead of preparing it for our arrival? Vexar was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that had not been there before. Sir, I request permission to speak freely. Granted. These humans are not like any species we have ever encountered. They do not respond to intimidation because they do not see us as enemies. They respond to kindness because that is their nature. And Admiral ... their kindness is more powerful than our weapons. Explain. 3 days ago, Ensign Kextal from my engineering crew had an accident. A coolant leak that should have killed him. The humans detected his distress signal and sent a rescue ship before we could even respond. They saved his life using medical techniques we had never seen before. Vexar gestured to someone off-screen. A young alien appeared beside him, his scales bright with health. Ensign Kextal spent 2 days in a human hospital. They treated him like family. They sang to him while he recovered. They brought him food from his homeworld that they had learned to prepare just for him. When he returned to my ship, he asked if he could invite his human doctors to dinner. Admiral Coffer stared at the young ensign. The boy's eyes were bright, with something that looked suspiciously like joy. Admiral, Ensign Kextal said, his voice shaking with emotion, they named a star after me. A real star. They said it was to celebrate my recovery. No one has ever named a star after me before. That is irrelevant, Admiral Coffer said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Captain Vexar asked. Admiral, half my crew has been invited to human family dinners. They have learned our names, our histories, our favorite foods. They have introduced us to their children and asked us to tell stories about our homeworlds. They treat us like we are precious guests instead of conquerors. You are forgetting your duty, Captain. No, sir. I am discovering what duty really means. My duty is to protect the Dominion and its people. But what if there is a better way to protect them than through conquest? What if these humans could teach us something that would make the entire galaxy safer and happier? Admiral Coffer cut the transmission. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent except for the humming of the ship's engines. Sir, General Vexmore said quietly, what are your orders? Admiral Coffer studied the tactical displays showing Earth's pathetic defenses and Captain Vexar's protective formation. Then he looked at the communications logs showing millions of human messages welcoming them to Earth. We will proceed as planned. Captain Vexar has been compromised by some form of human manipulation. We will remove his ships from the equation and complete the conquest ourselves. And if the humans try the same tactics on us? Admiral Coffer's scales rippled with determination. Then we will be ready for them. Alert all ships. Full battle formation. We advance on Earth in 1 hour. The Dominion war fleet moved through space like a mechanical storm. 200 ships arranged in perfect attack formation, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Coffer had conquered worlds with 1/10 of this firepower. Earth would surrender within minutes of seeing this display of overwhelming force. But as they approached the planet, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. Admiral, Science Officer Villani reported, I am detecting massive energy signatures around Earth. It appears to be some kind of defensive grid. Impossible. Human technology is centuries behind ours. Sir, I think you should see this. The main display showed Earth surrounded by a network of space stations and orbital platforms. But these were not the crude constructions they had seen a week ago. These were sleek, efficient, obviously functional defensive installations. How did they build those so quickly? General Vexmore asked. Sir, Villani said slowly, according to my scans, they appear to be constructed using modified Dominion technology, our own ship designs, adapted and improved. Admiral Coffer felt the universe shift again. The humans had somehow taken Dominion technology and made it better. In 1 week, sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through. Secretary General Chun appeared on the screen. She looked exactly the same as she had in Captain Vexar's reports. Calm, kind, and completely unafraid. Admiral Coffer, she said with a warm smile. Welcome to Earth. We've been preparing for your visit. Human, you will surrender your world immediately or face the consequences. Oh my, Chun said, tilting her head. You sound upset. Have you had a long journey? You must be tired. We've prepared quarters for you and your crew. There's fresh food waiting in comfortable beds. The children have been practicing songs in your language to welcome you properly. Admiral Coffer's scales began to change color again. This was exactly what Captain Vexar had described. The humans were treating him like a guest instead of a conqueror. Your defensive installations will not save you, he said, trying to maintain his authority. Defensive installations? Hyun looked confused. Oh, you mean our construction projects? Those aren't defensive, Admiral. Those are hotels. We built them for you and your crews. We know you've been traveling in warships for months, and warships aren't very comfortable for long journeys. She gestured to something off-screen. Each station is designed for different species' comfort requirements. We have gravity-free zones for the void dancers, high radiation chambers for the star-touched, cooling units for the ice world's representatives. We researched every species in your fleet and made sure everyone would have a comfortable place to stay. You built hotels, Admiral Coffer said slowly. For an invasion fleet. Well, yes. We figured you'd want to rest and get to know us properly before making any big decisions about our future relationship. Conquest is such an unfriendly way to start a friendship. Admiral Coffer looked at his tactical displays. The energy signatures he had thought were weapons were actually life support systems, environmental controls, recreational facilities. The humans had built an orbital vacation resort for the fleet that had come to destroy them. Sir, General Dexmore whispered, my ground assault teams are reporting something unusual. What now? The humans have been preparing landing zones for our troops, but not for invasion. For tourism. They have guides ready to show our soldiers around their cities. They have museums prepared with exhibits about human culture. They have restaurants ready to serve food from our homeworlds. Admiral Coffer sat down heavily in his command chair. His 6 eyes studied the tactical display showing 200 warships facing a planet that had turned itself into a giant welcome mat. Secretary General Chun, he said slowly, why are you doing this? Because, Chun said simply, we believe that everyone deserves a chance to be happy, including you and your crews. We know you probably didn't choose to be conquerors. We know you probably have families back home that you miss. We know you probably wish you could find a way to protect your people without having to hurt other people. She leaned forward slightly. So we decided to offer you an alternative. Instead of conquering us, why don't you let us help you? We're very good at solving problems. We're very good at making friends, and we're very good at finding ways for everyone to win. On his bridge, Admiral Coffer's crew had stopped working. They were listening to the human leader with expressions of wonder and confusion and something that might have been hope. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Coffer asked. A partnership, Chun said. We'll share our technology and our resources and our ideas. You'll share your knowledge and your experiences and your stories. Together we'll build something better than either of us could create alone. And if we refuse? Chun's expression grew sad but determined. Then we'll respect your choice. We won't fight you. Fighting doesn't create the kind of peace anyone really wants. But we won't surrender either. We'll keep being ourselves. We'll keep trying to be your friends. We'll keep hoping that someday you'll change your mind. She smiled again. And in the meantime, we'll keep your hotels ready just in case you decide you'd like to visit properly. Admiral Coffer closed all 6 of his eyes. When he opened them again, he was looking at a planet that had somehow turned an invasion into an invitation. A world that faced overwhelming force with overwhelming kindness. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Coffer did not know what to do next. Behind him, Science Officer Villani cleared her throat softly. "Sir, we are receiving individual messages from the human planet. Personal invitations to every member of our fleet. They appear to have researched each of our crew members and prepared customized welcomes based on our individual interests and backgrounds, Admiral." Coffer looked at his own message queue. There were 17 personal invitations waiting for him. 17 humans who had somehow learned about his hobbies, his favorite foods, his family back home, and wanted to welcome him personally to their world. One message was from a human child named Tommy who had drawn a picture of Admiral Coffer's 6 eyes because he thought they were super cool. Another was from an elderly human couple who had learned to cook food from his homeworld because they wanted to make sure he didn't get homesick during his visit. "Sir," General Vexar said quietly, "what are your orders?" Admiral Coffer stared at the tactical display, showing his overwhelming force facing a world that had responded to the threat of destruction by building guest quarters and learning to cook alien food. He thought about Elder Morren's warnings, about humans who turn their enemies into friends, about kindness being the most dangerous force in the universe. And for the first time, Admiral Coffer began to understand why the old elder had been so afraid. "Stand down weapons," he ordered quietly. "Sir, stand down weapons, all ships. We're going to ... we're going to accept their invitation." As the Dominion fleet powered down its weapons and prepared to dock with the human-built stations, Admiral Coffer wondered if this was what defeat felt like. It was much more comfortable than he had expected. Elder Morren sat in his meditation chamber aboard the ancient ship, Whisper of Time. The vessel was older than most civilizations, built when his people still remembered how to bend starlight into solid matter. Through the crystalline walls, he could see the blue glow of hyperspace rushing past like frozen lightning. His communication array chimed softly. A message from the Galactic Council. Another message about the humans. With 6 trembling arms, Morren activated the holographic display. The image of High Chancellor Mordeth appeared before him. The Chancellor's 4 faces showed expressions of confusion, anger, fear, and something that might have been wonder. "Elder Morren," Chancellor Mordeth said in his voice like grinding. "Crystals, we need your counsel. The situation with the humans has become ... complicated." Morren closed his ancient eyes. He had seen this coming for 10,000 years. It was always the same pattern. Younger species thought they understood the universe until they met something that changed all the rules. "What has happened, Chancellor?" "Admiral, Coffer's entire fleet has surrendered to the humans. 200 warships, 50,000 soldiers. The most powerful force the Dominion has ever assembled. They are now helping the humans build what they call friendship stations throughout their solar system." "Surrendered?" "Worse than surrendered, they have joined them." Admiral Coffer sent a message to Dominion High Command yesterday. He officially resigned his commission and requested political asylum on Earth. He said, and I quote, "I have found something worth protecting, and it is not conquest." Morren was not surprised. He had seen this happen before, though not on such a scale. Humans had a way of making people want to be better than they were. And the Dominion's response? Chancellor Mordeth's 4 faces showed different emotions as he spoke. "Supreme Commander, Thekul is preparing the final solution, the reality eraser. They plan to remove the humans from existence entirely before their influence can spread further." Now Morren felt true fear. The reality eraser was not just a weapon. It was a violation of the fundamental laws of existence. It did not kill. It made things never have been at all. "Chancellor, that weapon must not be used. The consequences would be catastrophic. The Supreme Commander believes the humans pose an existential threat to galactic order. He says their influence is spreading like a disease. 3 more Dominion. Fleets have refused orders to attack human colonies. The Trade Federation is reporting mass defections as their workers demand better treatment after seeing how humans care for each other. Even the war clans are asking questions about whether conquest is really necessary. Morren struggled to his feet. His ancient body protested every movement, but this was too important for weakness. Chancellor, you must understand. The humans are not conquering anyone. They are not forcing their beliefs on others. They are simply being themselves. And when other beings see what it means to be truly kind, truly hopeful, truly caring, they want to be part of that. That is exactly what makes them so dangerous, Chancellor Morren replied. They are changing the fundamental nature of galactic civilization without firing a single shot. Through his ship's sensors, Morren could feel the hyperspace currents carrying him toward Earth. He was still days away, but already he could sense something different about this region of space. Something warmer, something more alive. Chancellor, what exactly is happening on Earth right now? See for yourself. New images appeared in the holographic display. Morren's ancient heart nearly stopped at what he saw. Earth was no longer just one world. The humans had built a ring of space stations around their planet, each one designed for different alien species. But more than that, they had somehow turned their entire solar system into a massive diplomatic hub. Ships from dozens of different worlds orbited Earth peacefully. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on joint projects. The viewing areas of the human stations showed beings from across the galaxy sharing meals, exchanging stories, and learning each other's languages. How many species are there? Morren asked. 47 at last count, and growing daily. The humans somehow convinced them all to come not as conquerors or traders, but as guests. They are calling it the Universal Friendship Project. Morren watched as a group of human children played with young aliens in a zero-gravity playground. The children were laughing together despite having completely different biologies and speaking different languages. Somehow, laughter needed no translation. What are the humans asking for in return? Nothing, Chancellor Morren said, and his voice carried a note of bewilderment. They ask for nothing except the chance to be friends. They share their technology freely. They offer their resources without payment. They provide medical care to anyone who needs it regardless of species or politics. More images flowed across the display. Human doctors treating wounded soldiers from a dozen different armies. Human engineers helping alien civilizations solve technical problems. Human artists creating works that somehow spoke to the hearts of beings they had never met before. Chancellor, there is something you need to understand about humans. They do not see the universe in terms of us and them. They see it in terms of everyone and problems that everyone can solve together. That is insane. Yes, Morren agreed. It is completely insane, and it works. The communication was interrupted by an urgent signal. Another face appeared in the display, Admiral Vexar of the Dominion Special Forces. His expression was grim. Chancellor, we have a problem. The reality eraser weapon has been stolen. What do you mean, stolen? 3 days ago, a human delegation visited our most secure facility. They said they wanted to learn about our advanced technology for educational purposes. We thought it was harmless. They were just scientists and teachers, no weapons, no armor. They brought cookies. Chancellor Morren's 4 faces all showed the same expression of horror. They brought cookies to a military installation? Yes, sir. Homemade cookies and tea, and they asked very polite questions about how our weapons worked. Our security chief, Commander Vexar, found himself explaining the technical details while eating something called chocolate chip cookies. He said later that he had never tasted anything so delicious, and the humans seemed so genuinely interested in learning. And when they left, the reality eraser was gone, not stolen, exactly. They had convinced our engineering team to dismantle it and help them understand how it worked. The engineers thought they were conducting a friendly scientific exchange. Morren felt something that might have been admiration mixed with terror. The humans had neutralized the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy by being curious about it in bringing snacks. Where is the weapon now? Chancellor Mordith demanded. That's the problem, sir. The humans took it apart and figured out how it works. But instead of building more weapons, they improved it. Improved it how? Admiral Vexar's image flickered as he consulted his reports. Sir, they reversed its function. Instead of erasing things from reality, it now appears to heal reality. They have been using it to repair damaged worlds, restore extinct species, and fix problems that were thought to be permanent. The display showed new images, dead worlds blooming with life again, species that had been extinct for millions of years running free on restored planets, broken ecosystems becoming whole and healthy. They turned our ultimate weapon into a tool for healing, Admiral Vexar continued. And sir, they have offered to teach the technology to anyone who wants to learn it, free of charge. Chancellor Mordith sat in stunned silence. Finally, he found his voice. What does Supreme Commander Thakul say about this? The Supreme Commander is no longer responding to communications, sir. His last message was a formal resignation. He said he was going to Earth to learn how to garden? Apparently, the humans have convinced him that growing things is more satisfying than destroying them. He is now studying agricultural techniques with a human family in a place called Iowa. Morren began to laugh. It was a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, musical and ancient and full of wonder. Elder, Chancellor Mordith said, this is not amusing. The humans have destroyed the Galactic Order without firing a single shot. They have turned our greatest warriors into farmers and our most advanced weapons into healing tools. What are we supposed to do? Join them, Morren said simply. Join them? Chancellor, I have lived for 10,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species conquer each other and destroy each other and fear each other. And in all that time, I have never seen anything like what the humans are offering. He gestured to the images still flowing across the display. Look at those stations. Look at those children playing together. Look at former enemies working side by side to build something beautiful. The humans have not destroyed galactic civilization. They have shown us what galactic civilization could become. Chancellor Mordith's four faces showed confusion. But what about order? What about hierarchy? What about the natural competition between species? What about it? Morren asked. The humans compete too, but they compete to see who can be more helpful, who can be more generous, who can make more friends. They have turned competition into cooperation. The communication array chimed again. This time, the message was from Earth itself. Secretary General Chun appeared in the display, her warm smile as bright as ever. Elder Morren, she said, we've been expecting you. We know you're on your way here, and we wanted to let you know that we've prepared special quarters for you. Dr. Martinez has been studying your people's history and culture. He's very excited to meet you and learn from your experiences. Behind her, Morren could see humans and aliens working together on some kind of artistic project. A massive sculpture that seemed to incorporate elements from dozens of different cultures. We also wanted to thank you, Chun continued. We know that you tried to warn the Galactic Council about us. And you were right to be concerned. We are dangerous. We're dangerous to hatred and fear and loneliness. We're dangerous to the idea that beings have to be enemies. We're dangerous to the belief that the universe is not big enough for everyone to be happy. She leaned forward slightly. But we hope that's the kind of dangerous you can live with. Because we'd very much like to be your friends too, the message ended. Morren sat in his meditation chamber, surrounded by images of a galaxy being transformed by kindness. Chancellor Mordith spoke quietly. Elder, what should I tell the Galactic Council? Morren looked at the display showing human children teaching alien children how to sing human lullabies. He watched former enemies sharing meals and laughing together. He saw weapons being turned into healing tools and warriors learning to grow flowers. Tell them, he said softly, that the humans have won. Won what? Everything, Chancellor. They have won everything. They have won without fighting. They have conquered without violence. They have achieved what every empire in galactic history has failed to achieve. Which is? Morren's ancient eyes sparkled with something that might have been joy. They have made everyone want to be on their side. As his ship continued toward Earth, Morren began to compose his own message to the Galactic Council. It would be his final report as an Elder Advisor. His last official communication before he too requested asylum on the strange blue world that had turned invasion into invitation. The message was simple. The humans have taught us that there is something more powerful than the ability to destroy our enemies, the ability to love them until they are no longer enemies at all. In the depths of space, other ships were changing course toward Earth, not invasion fleets this time, refugee ships, colony vessels, transport craft full of beings who had heard about a world where everyone was welcome and no one had to be afraid. The humans had not conquered the galaxy, they had adopted it. And as Elder Morren had warned so long ago, it was far too late for mercy. But it turned out that mercy was no longer necessary. All that was needed now was an open heart and a willingness to learn what it meant to be human. Elder Morren's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. What he saw took his breath away. Even though he had lived for 10,000 years and thought nothing could surprise him anymore, the entire solar system had been transformed into something that had no name in any galactic language. It was not an empire. It was not a federation. It was not an alliance. It was something entirely new. Something that should not have been possible. It was home. Ships from every corner of the galaxy moved peacefully between the planets, not warships or trade vessels, but something he had never seen before. Family ships, colony ships, moving vans. Beings were not just visiting the human system. They were moving here. Permanently. Mars had been terraformed into a vast garden world where species that breathed different atmospheres could live side by side in specially designed habitats. Jupiter's moons had become research stations where the greatest minds in the galaxy worked together to solve problems that affected everyone. Saturn's rings had been turned into a massive art installation that could be seen from light years away, a collaboration between artists from 300 different worlds, but it was Earth itself that took Morren's breath away. The planet glowed with a soft light that seemed to come from within. Not the harsh glow of technology, but something warmer, something alive. Around the planet, thousands of space stations orbited like protective flowers, each one designed to house different species in comfort and safety. A small human ship approached Morren's ancient vessel. The communication array crackled too. Life. Elder Morren, welcome to the Sol System. This is Commander Sarah Chun, granddaughter of Secretary General Chun. We're honored to have you here. Morren activated his own communicator with trembling hands. Commander Chun, I am not sure I understand what I am seeing. This is not what I expected. Sarah Chun's voice was warm and patient, just like her grandmother's had been. What were you expecting, Elder? Chaos, conflict, the collapse of galactic civilization. Your people have destroyed everything we built over millions of years. Have we? Sarah asked gently. Or have we just helped everyone build something better? As they spoke, Morren's ship was guided toward a docking station designed specifically for his species. Through the viewing ports, he could see beings from across the galaxy working together on projects that would have been impossible just 5 years ago. A group of crystalline builders worked alongside human engineers to construct buildings that could house any species comfortably. Void dancers shared their knowledge of hyperspace navigation with human scientists, while human children taught young aliens how to play games that required no words. Elder, Sarah continued, my grandmother died 2 years ago. Her last words were about you. She said to tell you that you were right to warn everyone about humans. We are dangerous. But she hoped you would understand that being dangerous to bad things is not the same as being bad ourselves. Morren's ship docked with a gentle bump. Through the airlock window, he could see a delegation waiting to greet him. Humans stood next to beings he recognized from every major civilization in the galaxy. Former enemies embraced like old friends. Children of different species played together while their parents discussed topics that would have started wars just years before. "I need to see for myself," Morren said. "Of course. Take all the time you need. And Elder, welcome home." Morren had not been called home by anyone in 1,000 years. The word hit him like a physical blow, but not an unpleasant one. The airlock opened, and Morren stepped into a world he did not recognize. The station was beautiful in ways that should not have been possible. Every surface, every curve, every color had been designed to make every possible species feel comfortable and welcome. But more than that, it felt alive. It felt like love had been built into the very walls. A young human woman approached him. She was small and fragile-looking, nothing like the warriors who usually greeted important visitors. Behind her walked beings from dozens of different worlds, all wearing expressions of genuine happiness. "Elder Morren," the human said. "I'm Dr. Lisa Martinez. My grandfather was the anthropologist who first studied your people's culture. We've been preparing for your visit for months." She gestured to the group behind her. "Everyone here wanted to meet you. You're something of a legend." The elder who tried to warn everyone about humans. The being who saw what we were capable of before anyone else did. Morren looked at the assembled group. He recognized military leaders who had thrown down their weapons to become teachers. Scientists who had abandoned weapons research to study art. Politicians who had given up power to learn how to grow flowers. "What happened to them?" he asked quietly. "What do you mean, these beings?" "They were warriors, conquerors, politicians. What did you do to them?" Dr. Martinez smiled sadly. "We loved them, Elder. We loved them until they remembered how to love themselves." She led him through corridors filled with wonders. Walls covered with art created by species that had never met before humans introduced them. Gardens where plants from hundreds of worlds grew together in impossible harmony. Playgrounds where children who could not even breathe the same air played together in specially designed environments. "This is not possible," Morren said. "Why not?" "Because different species cannot live together peacefully. Because competition for resources always leads to conflict. Because the strong always dominate the weak. Because that is the way the universe works." Dr. Martinez stopped walking and turned to face him. "Elder, can I ask you something? In all your years of watching civilizations rise and fall, did you ever see one that was truly happy?" Morren thought about the question. Empires had been powerful. Federations had been efficient. Alliances had been stable, but happy? No, he admitted. Neither had we, so we decided to try something different. Instead of building a civilization based on who was strongest or smartest or most advanced, we built one based on who could be kindest. They entered a vast observation deck where beings from across the galaxy stood together watching the stars. Children pointed at distant worlds while adults from different species shared stories about their homes. Elderly beings from civilizations that had warred for centuries sat together in comfortable silence. "How?" Morren asked. "How did you convince them to abandon everything they believed in?" "We didn't," Dr. Martinez said. "We just showed them that there was another way. And when people see a better option, they choose it." She pointed to a group of former Dominion soldiers who were teaching human children how to navigate by the stars. Admiral Coffer didn't abandon his beliefs about protecting his people. He just realized that the best way to protect them was to make sure they never had to fight anyone again. She gestured to a team of mixed species working on some kind of scientific project. Dr. Villani didn't give up her love of knowledge. She just discovered that knowledge grows faster when everyone shares it freely. They walked past a kitchen, where beings who had once been enemies worked together to prepare food for a celebration that would honor the arrival of refugees from a war-torn world. Supreme Commander Thakul didn't stop being a leader. He just learned that the greatest victory is when everyone wins. Morren watched as the former commander of the Dominion's greatest army carefully tended to a garden of flowers that came from his homeworld. His expression was peaceful in a way that Morren had never seen on a warrior's face before. "What about you?" Dr. Martinez asked gently. What do you believe in, Elder? Morren was quiet for a long moment. He thought about 10,000 years of watching civilizations destroy each other. 10,000 years of warnings that no one listened to. 10,000 years of being right about the dangers that lurked in the darkness between stars. I believe that the universe was a dangerous place, he said slowly. I believe that species had to be careful, had to be suspicious, had to be ready to fight or be destroyed. And now? Morren looked around the observation deck. Children, who should have been enemies, played together while their parents planned collaborative projects that would benefit entire star systems. Former weapons of mass destruction had been converted into tools for healing and creation. The galaxy's most feared warriors had become its most devoted gardeners and teachers and artists. Now, I think maybe I was only half right, he said. What? Do you mean the universe is dangerous? But maybe the most dangerous thing in it is not what I thought it was? Dr. Martinez waited patiently for him to continue. I thought the most dangerous thing was hatred, or fear, or the desire to conquer and destroy. But I was wrong. He turned to look at her directly. The most dangerous thing in the universe is hope, because hope changes everything. Hope looks at impossible problems and finds solutions. Hope looks at enemies and sees potential friends. Hope looks at a broken galaxy and believes it can be fixed. And that frightens you? It terrifies me, Morren said honestly, because I am old and set in my ways, and I have spent 10,000 years believing that things could not get better. And you humans have proven me wrong about everything, Dr. Martinez smiled. Elder, would you like to see what we're working on now? She led him to a massive chamber at the heart of the station. Inside, thousands of beings worked together on something that took Morren's breath away. It was a map, but not of any single world, or system, or even galaxy. It was a map of the entire universe, showing every star and every planet and every form of life that existed anywhere. What is this? He asked. The Universal Family Project, Dr. Martinez explained. We're cataloging every species in the universe. Not to conquer them or control them or judge them. Just to know them, to understand them, to figure out how to invite them to join our family. She pointed to sections of the map that pulsed with different colors. We've already made contact with 17 galaxies. We're learning their languages. We're studying their cultures. We're preparing welcome packages for when we're ready to visit. Visit, not invade. Not conquer, visit, with gifts and friendship and offers to help solve whatever problems they might have. Morren stared at the map showing the entire universe marked as potential friends and family members. This is insane, he whispered. Yes, Dr. Martinez agreed cheerfully. Completely insane, and it's working. She gestured to a section of the map showing their own galaxy. Look around you, Elder. 5 years ago, our galaxy was divided into competing empires that spent most of their time fighting each other. Now, it's one big, happy, chaotic family that spends most of its time trying to figure out new ways to help each other. She was right. Through the viewing ports, Morren could see ships from former enemy civilizations working together to build something beautiful. Art projects, science experiments, playgrounds for children who would grow up thinking that beings from other worlds were just more family members they hadn't met yet. What do you want from me? Morren asked. Nothing, Dr. Martinez said. We want to give you something. What? A chance to be part of the family? A chance to help us figure out how to spread hope and kindness and friendship to every corner of the universe. A chance to use your 10,000 years of wisdom to help us do better. She paused, and maybe a chance to finally stop being afraid. Morren felt something crack inside his ancient heart. For 10,000 years he had carried the burden of being the one who warned others about dangers they could not see. For 10,000 years he had been the voice of caution and fear, and careful planning. But standing here, surrounded by former enemies who had become family, watching children from hundreds of worlds play together under alien stars, he realized something that should have been obvious. Fear had never protected anyone from anything. Fear had only prevented them from discovering how wonderful the universe could be when everyone worked together. "Dr. Martinez," he said quietly, "I would like to apply for citizenship in this universal family of yours." "Granted," she said immediately. "Welcome home, Elder. We've been waiting for you." As if summoned by her words, beings from across the station began to gather in the observation chamber. They came carrying instruments and artwork and food from their homeworlds. They came singing songs in languages that blended together into something that sounded like joy itself. It was a welcome party, for him, for the cranky old elder who had spent 10,000 years warning everyone about the dangers of hope and kindness and believing that things could get better. And as he stood surrounded by beings who had once been enemies but were now family, watching children who would grow up in a universe where war was something their grandparents used to do, Elder Morren finally understood why he had been so afraid of humans. It was not because they were dangerous to their enemies. It was because they were dangerous to the idea that anyone had to be an enemy at all. And in a universe where everyone was family, where every problem was just a puzzle waiting to be solved together, where every stranger was just a friend who hadn't been welcomed home yet, there was no longer any need for warnings about danger. There was only need for bigger dinner tables and more comfortable guest rooms and better ways to say, "Welcome to the family," in languages that hadn't been invented yet. As the celebration continued around him, Elder Morren began to compose. His final report to the Galactic Council, it would be brief. The humans have won, not through conquest or force or superior technology. They have won by making victory unnecessary. They have won by making everyone want to be on the same side. They have won by turning the entire universe into a family reunion that will last forever. The elders warned them about humans. But no, one listened until it was too late for mercy. And thank the stars for that. Because it turns out that mercy was never what anyone needed. What everyone needed was love. And humans have enough love for the entire universe, with room left over for anyone else who wants to join. Consider this my final warning, if you meet a human, be prepared. Be prepared to be adopted. Be prepared to be loved. Be prepared to discover that the universe is much bigger and much kinder and much more wonderful than you ever imagined possible. And be prepared to never want to be anywhere else ever again. End of report, end of warnings, beginning of home.